Welcome, Bobby, to Metalladium Pages. It's a great pleasure to talk with you about Overkill, this new album, Scorched, and more things related to the metal world. So we will start by asking how was the band during these last 4 years? How was the composition process of this new album? The pandemic perhaps helped you to put more details into the album because a lot of musicians around the world have more time during this pandemic.
Well, it's a good point. First, it's great to be here, of course. Great to be back working again on getting ready to go on the road, releasing a new record. It was a different time. I mean, it wasn't a different time just for Overkill and music, but let's say the world itself. But one of the things I felt that during the pandemic that helped the results of Scorch was having the luxury of time, being able to go through what was written, go through it again and go through it again. So I think the results became a lot more diverse than they would normally be. There was a lot of traditional heavy metal in there. There was a lot of thrash, but also progressive thrash, some blues, some groove, some et cetera, et cetera. So I do think the results of this record are attributed to that extra time that the pandemic allowed myself specifically and the other guys in the band.
Okay, nice. Overkill is perhaps one of the few thrash metal bands that has a vast discography with 20 albums on the studio, including this new one. So therefore, what is the significance or what is the meaning for you to this new album into the band's career? And perhaps, do you have the same feeling that you had when you released your first album, Feel the Fire, or perhaps Iron Band with this new album?
Well, sure. I mean, there's still an excitement there. I mean, you don't do this unless there's excitement. I mean, it starts somewhere in your heart, that burning feeling. But I think one of the things that we've always loved doing was having the opportunity, whether that opportunity be writing a new record, whether that opportunity being performing on a new tour. So it all comes together and grab that opportunity and make the most of it. So the excitement exists. It just exists in like a different parameter. It's not exactly the same as when I'm in my early 20s and Feel the Fire comes out. I mean, it's just how many decades later. But you still look at the opportunity. You still want to, I suppose you want to increase or accentuate whatever you've done before that, to be able to push everything a little bit further. Let's say to be a better singer, to be a better songwriter, to show different influences. And these kind of opportunities make it still worthwhile doing. I mean, this many years later. I mean, some people will say Overkill's the same since the 80s. It's very untrue. I mean, you can listen to Scorched. It's nothing like Feel the Fire. It's so many different influences that it's still fun to explore, go down those roads with those different influences. And I think Scorched shows that in its results.
Yeah. So, with such a large discography, it's impossible not satisfy fans when you play it live or embark on a new tour because you have over 5,000 songs to select in 20 albums. It's impossible. So, how does the band do when select their songs for a new tour, considering that sometimes there are new cities and new countries included that it never heard many of the band's classics at that time?
Well, I think it's a balance is what you do. What excites the band itself, and you do this selfishly. I mean, you're in a band for selfish reasons, not just to have somebody throw you a fucking parade. Oh, you're great. Who cares? You do it because it turns you on, because it makes you happy. What makes us happiest is playing the newer songs, because that's where that element of danger still comes from. It's unproven yet on a stage. And listen, I mean, I can guess that it's probably going to do okay. But still, that unproven element of danger is what makes going on the road and picking songs that much fun. Now, obviously, the balance is that of some of the classical stuff, whether it be stuff that you're familiar with, like Elimination or Rotten to the Core or something off of Horoscope. But then the remainder, so we got the new songs, we got the classic old songs. The remainder has got to be kind of a blend of unheard of songs and a blend of songs that we had done in the past. So I do think that it's a balance between the three: new, classic, and deep cuts.
Okay. So I was reading comments about this new album, and there is always an idea of the comparing the past records, especially for the fans. This album is much better, this album is much better, etc., etc. So Or talking of some milestones in the careers, I read a few hours ago that some people, some guys say that this Ironbound is the best worst to date. So it's different opinions in general. So according to your point of view, what is or are the albums that define the sound of Overkill as it is now?
That's a really good question, man, because Overkill is not, it's not really one entity. It's what it's done is that it's morphed into different things over the years. And I attribute this to the fact that there's been a lot of member changes over the years. Bobby Gustafson leaving in 1990, going from one guitar player to two guitar players. So for instance, that first era, I think it culminates with a record called The Years of Decay. I think that was a definitive record for that first era. But now the second era starts with Horoscope, which I think set the tone for everything that comes after that. I mean, even to the current day, because we started instilling much more groove into our songs with the Horoscope record. In the mid-90s, there was a record called From the Underground and Below, also produced by Colin Richardson, mixed by him, who did the Scorched record. I think that record is a complete record. But the last one I would pick of the different eras of Overkill is the Ironbound record, because I think what happened on the Ironbound record was not necessarily the record itself, but the scene started becoming healthy again. And you could see even from other bands and their releases and their offerings during that time, it was a reflection of a really healthy scene worldwide, whether it be North America, South America, Europe, Asia. There was that kind of finally it was back with that unified kind of a fist, kind of a feel. And Ironbound, I think, represents that era of time.
Okay. So where would this new production Scorched end fit? Does it continue the band's tradition, or is a new milestone in the band's career? Well, according to you, because for me, I denoted a lot of new things into this new album.
No, I don't know if this is a milestone with regard to career or like a new avenue of production. When I hear the production on this record, I hear two eras. I hear the era of the current day. I hear 2023, and I hear something that's relevant in 2023. But also, as soon as you press play on this record, you start hearing, for instance, a guitar intro that sits by itself, like a lone guitar coming in on the song Scorched. And then when you get past it to where the band is, you hear the scoop guitars of almost the 90s. So it's almost like two eras. It's the current day with the punch and the production of the drums, etc., the clarity of the vocals, and the days gone by of, let's say, the early 90s. So if you put both of them together, that becomes its unique quality with regard to production.
Great to know. So Overkill is a band about with many experiences, many details, many anecdotes that are impossible to summarize in an interview or in a record or in the commentary perhaps. So therefore, now that the movement of books, documentaries, video specials, a lot of things, and more things are more having success in the metal world around the world. So what do you think a likely Overkill book story should be called if you had the opportunity to do a history book of Overkill? And how will you place your character in this book in Overkill's career?
It's funny because I mean, I've been asked to do books, and you know what I would call it? None of your business. I grew up on the East Coast in the States. I had great uncles who told me, work hard and keep your fucking mouth shut. And I think that's one of the things that we've always done is we've kept our secrets and our drama to ourselves. I mean, and I think that's important, that we've never been, it allows us to work more so. It doesn't mean that we don't disagree. We do disagree, but we do it behind closed doors. So I'm not really interested in the history of Overkill because the history is still to some degree being written. If you can write a record that's relevant in 2023, 40 years after starting, it doesn't need a book to explain it. It needs to press play to explain that what the book is or what our story is. And the story continues more so through music than to read some historical accounting of what we've done. I just don't think I think that's for other people. I don't count myself among those who think it's necessary to tell everybody all their secrets. I've always been a private person when it comes to a majority of my life, and I will remain doing so even when I leave this band.
Mhm. Okay, nice, nice. Oh, talking about one detail that you said is the well, no, a lot of people when write about the history of thrash metal, death metal, etc. styles that exist already now, all people focus in the band, all people focus in the your life is far away from the band. It's not completely normal for me, especially I like the band, I like the music, not only the life behind each one of members. So, but a lot of interviewers say or reviewers say that it's important to know what happens internally in the live musicians. That's the way that they create news, create a lot of things. So, for you, which is more important into the story of in a band and the music? Is the album? Is the musician? Or perhaps is the soul song one song?
It's a good question because there's so many different avenues you can go with this. There's so many different ways. I think that the most important thing to make it self-explanatory is the chemistry between the musicians. If you look at Dee Dee Verney and myself, we have a relationship that goes all the way back to 1980. The reason that relationship exists is because the chemistry between he and I. He starts a song, I finish the song. I can depend on him, he can depend on me. Now, obviously, with the guys that are in this band, Dave Lynch, Jason Bittner, they're also dependable pieces of this band. So him starting the song and me finishing the song goes through Jason and Dave to make sure that that song is correct. Now, the reason I think that dependability happens is because very much we are the same people, that we've always put our families first. We were raised the same by our parents. We had big families. We were both second generation. Our parents were first generation Americans. Mine from Ireland, his from Italy, his grandparents, my grandparents, etc. I think because of that, this is why we can work. And this is why the story tells itself. It's a lot to do. It's not about genius. It's not about artistic expression. It's about understanding the other person and being able to work with that person based on trust and based on the same goals.
No, okay, okay, nice, nice, nice. So you are a person with more than 40 years of experience. You are, as I said, as I told you, you are did 20 albums, more than had 500 over songs to select. Just and it's impossible to do just one set list or one like this new generation prefers to do it. So I'm talking about this aspect of living influence and feeling what happens internally and externally for the musicians. Many musicians says that they don't have a direction when writing music and carried away by the feelings that they have in the moment. That's normally for the musician. So for you, how do the parts of producing an album connect with the idea of sensation of it? Could we say that the music for you is a concept thinking? The concept thinking, I mean, when you put three riffs, then you create the song. Then you did the tempos, you did the metronome there. So that's the mathematical aspect to create the music. But at the same time, you are a musician and you carry away by the feeling. And perhaps you think that the music and the albums carry away by the feelings that you got in the moment.
Well, I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I don't think it's always that way. I think that in many cases, first and foremost, I don't consider myself an artist. I consider myself more of a craftsman. I build tables. I fix engines. I make motorcycles go faster. I'm that guy. And I think when I think that way, then I know what I am. So when I know what I am, I don't have to go and explore the entire rest of the world. Regardless of what we've done as musicians, as people, we knew we were heavy metal guys. So we were within this. It clears a whole bunch of the area for us to be able to say, this is what we do and this is what we do best. It doesn't mean it has to be exactly the same thing. We can take the other influences from the outside, whether it be rock and roll, whether it be blues, whether it be traditional heavy metal, old progressive thrash metal, groove. We add all this in when we're making that craft happen. And this is where it happens. So it's not a matter of overthinking it for us. I think it starts with the heart and it goes to a reaction. That reaction is the riff. How do you react to the action? How do you react to the riff? What is your response to the riff? Mine is to sing to that riff. And that's where I think that creation comes from, especially over 40 years. Not confusing an issue. You can overthink something and make something simple so complicated by just thinking it too much and putting yourself in a different position. I am what I am, and that's why it's easy for me to understand where my role is with Overkill and where my role is with writing music.
Nice, nice. With more, as I say, with more than 40 years of experience and thrash metal, having seen the latest explosions in metal in general and the creation of human styles, because you see the born of death metal, the black metal, the grindcore, etc. A lot of the things you saw since the beginning. How do you see the path of thrash metal in these times where there are many experimentations in the extreme metal? Can we say that the thrash metal is stagnated in time with the big bands like Overkill, Testament, Metallica, Megadeth, etc., etc., and the new bands within them must just follow your path that you did 40 years ago, 30 years ago?
I think for sure that's the way. When there was a resurgence of this, especially with the younger bands, I think that you're right. That template that was created back, for instance, in the 80s, 40 years ago, was something that the newer bands used as a starting point. I think since then that many of them have developed their own personality and their own template for how things should be done to continue. I don't think it's something you could just instantaneously change. I think it's something, if you want to be a thrash band, there has to be certain elements in there that make it a thrash presentation, whether that be the speed of the drums, whether that be how the guitar is played, where the guitar is played over the drums, how the vocals are presented, how the song is written. That template exists. But I do think simultaneously with everything else you mentioned, whether it's grindcore, whether it's, a groove metal, whether it's new metal, I'm starting to see more outside of the thrash genre or the subgenre of it, where it's becoming there's a great amount of popularity for bands that are playing arenas. They're playing arena size, but falling in reverse. These guys can go out and sell out 20,000 seat places, and they're doing it not based on anything except that they've struck a chord with that of this generation. And I think it's fucking amazing that somebody can do something like so. Would I like to do it? Of course I'd like to do it. Did we do it? No, we most certainly did not do it. We struck a chord in a small area where people endeared themselves to us. So I do think that there's changes coming, and I think it's also fucking necessary. Changes should be there. This should be a young man's fucking fight, not a fucking gray-haired guy,
Okay. So Overkill has achieved the path and is a band of influence to many new bands into the thrash metal. So do you think the thrash metal can get out of that fierce street and much pitch attachment that you did or a lot of bands did in the 80s? Because when I hear for the first time in the 80s, the thrash metal was fierce, a lot of mosh into there, a lot of explosion. This is the kind of feeling when I saw a thrash metal, when I saw a lot of bands thrash metals in the 80s. So do you think thrash metal can have new aspects into this style in more than 40 years of existence? It's possible to go further of that style that you create with a lot of bands more?
I do, if you add other influence to it. I think that that's really the key to it. If it stays the same with exactly the same influence, then no. But the other side of this, or the other answer to this question, is one of the things that make thrash metal attractive to the audience that likes it is its purity. There's a pure type of an approach to this whole thing. It's how it's done. This is correct. Listen, Metallica is really no longer a thrash band. They are the biggest rock and roll band in the fucking world. That's as simple as it is. And God bless them for doing what they did and how they like to do it. I get it. But when they released Kill 'Em All, they changed the rules for all of this shit. Yeah. And that purity from that early days is what attracts that thrash fan. Like when you're seeing that explosion or feeling that fucking energy, being at that fucking show, that's what makes it happen for a thrash band, is purity. And with that purity comes value. And with that value comes longevity.
Okay. And so can we talk about a band that is raising the new era of thrash metal starting in 2020?
A new band raising the flag in 2020. That's right at the beginning of the pandemic, so that's hard for me to remember. I think of 2020 as not again.
or perhaps a few years, perhaps a few years before, 25, 20.
Well, a few years before, over that decade between 2010 and 2020, you saw bands like Warbringer come along. a band like Havoc out of Denver. I was always partial to a UK band during that era called Evil out of the UK, and I thought really Evil had the ability to take it really to the next level when it came to that, because they had their own style by using the original template but taking it other places. And I thought they could have been, for instance, the next Metallica or something like so, somebody who made such a big impact on the scene itself.
Okay. Other detail that I didn't know a lot of since the beginning to now from Overkill is that you use the green color in your cover art, in the logo. It's like your personal color for the band. So into this aspect, sometimes when you spoke with the band, with the old members and new members, sometimes do you have the alternative to change this color of the band for a new presentation, a new era on Overkill?
It was very simple why we did this. We were kids. We wanted to be a big heavy metal band, so we needed a mascot like Iron Maiden had. So we had our bat with the wings. We needed to be identifiable, so we started making T-shirts, our own T-shirts after rehearsal. We'd practice. We'd make T-shirts. I mean, the old-fashioned way with a screen. No computers, just like a drawing and a screen. We tried white. Everybody had white. We tried red. Everybody had red. We went to green. Nobody had green. So it's very simple that if someone saw the green, they would say, it's Overkill. Even if it wasn't Overkill, they would say, oh, it's Overkill. So it worked for us as, let's say very luckily, a great marketing concept from all the way back from before we were signed.
Okay. Well, as I told you, you saw a lot of changes into the music industry. So through the decades, especially for the classic bands in 70s and 80s, 90s, and 2000s, do you these bands have a huge change in 40 years? It's amazing. But even for young bands like new ones, since 4 or 5 years to 6 years, they see a lot of change in the last 10 years. But so especially for the digital platforms have become more important now to spread the music. So how has been your experience with the digital platforms? And how do you deal with the issue of the fans not listening to full albums now, like before and now they focus more on singles, and we are in a cyclic time returning to the 40s and 50s. The 40s and 50s music spread just by singles.
Honestly, I mean, from where I come from, it's a little disappointing you don't listen to the full record, or a person doesn't. And I only say that because I come from an era where the full record was the most important thing, not the individual song. If I listened to a Black Sabbath record, I needed 40 minutes to listen to that record, not 4.5 minutes to listen to Children of the Grave. I needed the whole fucking 40 minutes to hear that record. And that's why I always wanted to be a musician, was to make records, not to make songs. And I think that that's a different concept. I think also I've only made a few full records that I was involved in my life, where it becomes a record where you want to hear it from start to finish. I think the Years of Decay, I think Horoscope, I think the ones I mentioned earlier about From the Underground and Below, Ironbound. I think Scorched could be that way, that it's a full feeling kind of a record. But it's fucking necessary to be able to not be left behind like some kind of an old fucking asshole, to not embrace the new musical platforms, the streaming platforms. They have to be embraced. It's what it is today. Now, we still, as a metal band, and especially a thrash band, we still have a part of our fandom, of those who support us, who want to hold a tangible product in their hand. They want to be able to feel a vinyl record. They want to be able to feel a CD. So we're still at a balance here where we embrace the social and streaming platforms, but simultaneously have people who want to possess something to collect. So it's kind of the best of both worlds for 2023 for an older band like Overkill.
Okay. I always consider rock and metal music is the music of people that may age, but they keep spirit young. I listen to the last records from the classic bands like you, and after decades, many of them manage to keep the energy. But to be realistic, nothing lasts forever. In your opinion, what do you think is going to happen when most classic bands that can perform as tennis will be retired? Do you think that there are younger bands in general that carry away the torch in this aspect?
Of course, there's younger bands. There's always somebody waiting. You know, I think this way myself. If I can't do it at the high level, I'm not going to stand there I mean, I might try, but once I realize, hey, it's over, it's gone, it's gone. You know, I don't sit here and I don't have the negative thought of what the future may bring. I have the positive thought of what the present provides me. And I think that if I can look at each day this way, I can continue to do this for a little bit longer. But I do think it's necessary that bands be fucking replaced. I mean, there's just, you know, it's great. I mean, I don't want to be a fucking novelty. The whole reason for releasing Scorched is to not be, oh, those old guys. It's to be, oh, those old guys who are still making music that counts in the present day. It's about being relevant today, not about being relevant yesterday.
Yes, yes. Oh, we're very close to this interview, Bobby. And for this aspect, what are the future plans that the band has for this new album? Perhaps you will promote with more videos upcoming. You will come to Latin America again, or perhaps Europe or Asia. Who knows? Perhaps you have more dates upcoming.
Well, it has to tour. I mean, that's the thing. It's part of this whole process for releasing a record is that a tour follows. So we'll be on the road the day before the record releases. We'll be in Western Europe doing a show the day before. That will take us into May, and then we're right now talking about doing a full U.S. run in June, July. After that, we have festivals through Europe. After that, we're doing another run. Then the Latin American run will probably come in somewhere in your summertime, I would think so, closer to the November, December. So it's all working. Once the machine starts moving, everything has to move. And that's tours around the world and planning things for at least a year in advance.
Okay, okay. Well, Bobby, the sad times arrive at this interview. I hope you enjoyed this one like me. You are terrific guy. It's an honor to meet you face to face because I just saw you alive. No, face to face. It was a pleasure. I got I forgot. I have more than 10 discs from Overkill. Love your band since the beginning. So perhaps do you want to add something to your Latin American fans and Metallica followers? Hey, by the way, this is Scorched. It's amazing.
I don't know if I can say anything after that. Muchas gracias.